The paparazzi were screaming my name before I even stepped out of the car. Flashes exploded in every direction, white light cutting through the night like broken glass. Hands reached toward me, too close, too desperate. Someone grabbed my wrist. Another voice shouted something I couldn't understand. My chest tightened, air slipping away as panic surged faster than my thoughts. Then she appeared. 6 feet of calm control in a black suit, stepping between me and the chaos as if the noise didn't exist. One arm lifted, firm and unyielding, creating a barrier where seconds ago there had been none. Her presence was immediate, grounding. "Stay close to me," she said, her voice low and steady near my ear. That was the moment everything changed. Before I continue, if you love emotional girls' love stories like this, please subscribe now. And while you're here, comment below and tell me what country you're watching from. I'd love to know where you're listening from. Growing Heart. My name is Vivian Laurent. To the world, I was a pop star, an actress, a face that didn't belong to me anymore. To myself, in that moment, I was just a woman struggling to breathe. I clung to the sleeve of the stranger protecting me, my fingers shaking as she guided me through the swarm with effortless precision. Inside the car, the door slammed shut, sealing out the noise. My body finally reacted to what had almost happened. My hands trembled uncontrollably, breath coming in shallow bursts. I stared at the seat in front of me, ashamed of how fragile I suddenly felt. "You're safe," she said calmly. "Focus on your breathing." I did. Or at least I tried. She sat across from me, posture straight, eyes alert even now. Her hair was pulled back neatly, her expression unreadable. Professional. Controlled. Nothing like the panic unraveling inside me. "I'm Alexis Kane," she continued. "I'll be handling your security from now on." Security. Bodyguard. Another necessary presence in my carefully managed life. I nodded weakly, not trusting my voice yet. She didn't push. Instead, she watched, observant without being intrusive, like she was trained to notice things others missed. By the time we reached my apartment, my breathing had steadied, though my chest still ached. Alexis exited the car first, scanning the surroundings before opening my door. The gesture was simple, routine even, but something about the way she did it made me feel strangely protected. Inside, the silence felt heavy. My home was beautiful, expensive, empty. Alexis remained near the door, professional distance firmly in place. "Do you need anything?" she asked. I hesitated. "Just stay for a moment." Her jaw tightened almost imperceptibly, but she nodded. "Of course." We stood there, 2 women in the quiet aftermath of chaos. I noticed then how tired I felt, not just tonight, but all the time. Tired of smiling. Tired of being seen. Tired of pretending fear didn't live just beneath my skin. "They never stop," I said softly. "No," Alexis replied. "But they don't get to touch you. Not anymore." Something in her certainty unsettled me. No one spoke like that to me. No one made promises without conditions. Over the next few days, Alexis became a constant presence. She walked a step behind me, always aware, always watching. At events, she positioned herself between me and the crowd without being asked. When fans screamed my name, her attention never wavered. I told myself she was just doing her job. Still, I began to notice the small things. How she slowed her pace when I was tired. How she subtly guided me away from triggers before I even recognized them myself. How her voice softened when she spoke to me alone. One afternoon, during a fitting, the room suddenly felt too small. My chest tightened again, panic rising without warning. I dropped into a chair, vision blurring. Alexis was there instantly, kneeling in front of me, her voice calm and deliberate. "Look at me, Vivian. Breathe with me." I did. Her hands hovered, never touching until I nodded. When they finally rested lightly on my wrists, the contact sent a quiet shiver through me. Unexpected and unsettling in a way I couldn't explain. "You're okay," she said again. "I've got you." No one had ever said that to me without wanting something in return. Later that night, alone in my bedroom, I replayed the day over and over. Alexis's voice. Her steady gaze. The way my body responded to her presence before my mind could intervene. She was just my bodyguard. That was all. But as I stared up at the ceiling, heart beating a little too fast, a dangerous thought crept in. One that made my chest ache with both fear and curiosity. What if she was becoming something more? And what if I was already falling for the one person I was never supposed to want? I told myself the unease I felt had nothing to do with Alexis. That it was simply my life catching up with me. The schedules, the scrutiny, the constant awareness that every movement I made belonged to someone else. Still, every morning when I stepped out of my bedroom and found her already there, waiting with quiet vigilance, my heart reacted before my mind could catch up. Before I go on, if you're enjoying this story so far, don't forget to subscribe. And tell me in the comments what country you're watching from. It means more to me than you know, growing heart. Alexis was efficient. That was the word everyone used. Efficient and discreet. My management loved her instantly. She spoke little, listened carefully, and made decisions without seeking approval. It should have made me uncomfortable. Instead, it made me feel strangely at ease. Our days fell into a routine. Morning briefings over black coffee. Silent car rides where the city blurred past the windows. Events where I smiled for cameras while Alexis stood just within reach, her presence a steady anchor in a sea of noise. At first, I barely noticed how often I looked for her. Then I noticed that I always did. She learned my habits quickly. The way I twisted my rings when anxious. How my breathing changed before a panic attack surfaced. The subtle cues I didn't even realize I was giving away. More than once, she redirected me moments before I reached a breaking point, guiding me toward quieter spaces with a gentle hand at my back. "You're allowed to take breaks," she told me one afternoon as we slipped into an empty hallway backstage. I laughed softly. "You haven't met my schedule." Her lips curved just slightly. "I've met worse." That was another thing. I was starting to see pieces of her beneath the armor. Dry humor. A sharp intelligence. A kindness she kept carefully restrained, as if afraid of letting it show too much. Every time she looked at me, it was with focus, not admiration. Protection, not possession. And yet, one evening, after a charity gala that left me exhausted and overstimulated, we sat in the back of the car in silence. My heels were off, my head resting against the cool glass. The city lights streaked past, distant and unreal. "You did well tonight," Alexis said quietly. "I always do," I replied, then sighed. "That's the problem." She turned slightly, her gaze steady on me. "You don't have to perform with me." The words settled into me slowly. Dangerous words. Words that invited honesty. "I don't know how to stop," I admitted. Alexis didn't respond right away. When she did, her voice was softer than I'd ever heard it. "You don't have to stop. Just breathe. Let someone else carry the weight sometimes." I wondered then how much weight she carried herself. What kind of life shaped someone like her? Someone who stood between chaos and harm without hesitation, yet kept her own emotions locked away. The more time we spent together, the harder it became to ignore the shift between us. Conversations lingered longer than necessary. Silences felt charged instead of awkward. I caught myself watching her when she thought I wasn't looking. How focused she became when assessing a room, how gentle her hands were when helping me into the car. One night, after a particularly long rehearsal, I stumbled slightly, dizziness washing over me. Alexis caught me instinctively, her arm firm around my waist. For a heartbeat, neither of us moved. Her breath was warm against my temple. My hand rested against her chest, feeling the steady rhythm beneath her suit. The moment stretched, intimate and unguarded, before she stepped back abruptly. "Sorry," she said quickly. "So am I," I replied, though I wasn't sure why. From that moment on, a line existed between us, thin and trembling. I felt it every time our hands brushed. Every time our eyes met for just a second too long. Every time she chose distance when instinct told her to step closer. I wasn't imagining it. I could feel her restraint as clearly as my own confusion. Late one night, unable to sleep, I found her in the kitchen reviewing security footage on her tablet. The glow illuminated her face, softening her usually sharp features. "You should be resting," she said without looking up. "So should you." She finally met my gaze. For a moment, something unguarded flickered there. Concern, warmth, something deeper she quickly buried. "This is my job," she reminded me. I nodded. "I know." But the words felt hollow now. Because somewhere between the chaos and the quiet moments, between protection and proximity, Alexis had stopped feeling like just my bodyguard. And I was starting to realize that pretending otherwise was becoming impossible. I didn't sleep that night, or the night after that. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Alexis the way she'd looked in the kitchen. Focused, tired, human in a way she rarely allowed herself to be. The distance she kept between us felt heavier now, charged with things we refused to name. I told myself it was my imagination, that loneliness had a way of exaggerating emotions. But deep down, I knew better. The breaking point came sooner than I expected. It happened at another public appearance, this one smaller, more controlled. Or so everyone thought. The room was elegant, filled with soft music and polite applause, but my body didn't care about appearances. The air felt too thick, the lights too bright. Conversations blurred into a dull roar as my pulse began to race. I tried to breathe through it. I really did. But panic doesn't ask permission. My hands started shaking, vision narrowing until the edges of the room faded. My chest tightened painfully, each breath shallow and useless. I took a step back, then another, desperate for space that didn't exist. Alexis noticed immediately. She was at my side in seconds, her voice cutting through the noise like a lifeline. "Vivian, look at me." Her hands didn't touch me yet. She waited, always respectful of boundaries. When I nodded weakly, she guided me away from the crowd and into a quiet side room, closing the door behind us. "You're safe," she said calmly. "Nothing's going to happen." My legs gave out, and I slid down against the wall, gasping for air. Panic clawed at my chest, irrational and overwhelming. I hated that she had to see me like this, unraveled, weak, exposed. Alexis crouched in front of me, her eyes level with mine. "Breathe with me," she said softly. "In. Out. Slow." I tried to follow her rhythm. Failed. Tried again. She reached out then, resting her hands gently over mine. The contact was grounding, steady, real. My breathing began to slow, tears slipping down my cheeks without warning. "I can't do this anymore," I whispered. "I'm so tired." Alexis didn't interrupt. She didn't rush to fix me. She just stayed. When the panic finally loosened its grip, I realized how close we were. Too close. Her hand still holding mine. Her face just inches away. I could see the concern etched into her expression, the tension in her jaw, like she was fighting something inside herself. "You don't have to be strong all the time," she said quietly. "You're allowed to fall apart." The words shattered something in me. I laughed softly, bitter and tired. "Everyone depends on me," I said. "Fans, managers, sponsors. I don't even know who I am without all of it." Alexis's gaze softened. "You're still Vivian," she replied, "even without the lights." For a moment, the world shrank to just us. The quiet hum of the room, the warmth of her hands, the truth hanging unspoken between us. That was when I realized it. I was in love with her. The knowledge hit me with terrifying clarity. Not a crush, not admiration, something deeper, heavier. Something that made my chest ache and my instincts scream at me to step closer instead of away. Alexis seemed to sense the shift. She withdrew her hands slowly, standing and turning her back to me as if distance alone could restore order. "This can't happen," she said, her voice tight. I stood on unsteady legs. "What can't?" She faced me then, conflict written all over her features. "You're my client," she said. "And you deserve someone who isn't constantly assessing threats, someone who doesn't have to choose between their job and their feelings." My heart sank, even as part of me understood. "Is that what this is?" I asked softly. "Feelings." Alexis looked away. Silence answered me more loudly than words ever could. "I don't want to complicate your life," she continued. I won't be another thing you have to manage. I stepped closer despite myself. You don't feel like a complication, I said. You feel like the only thing that's real. The admission hung between us, raw and dangerous. Alexis's breath hitched. For a second, I thought she might reach for me. Instead, she stepped back, putting space between us like a shield. This line exists for a reason, she said quietly. And I won't cross it. The words hurt more than I expected. That night, I lay awake replaying everything. Her restraint, her concern, the way she chose distance even when it clearly cost her something. Loving her felt like standing on the edge of something irreversible. And yet, no matter how hard I tried to convince myself otherwise, one truth remained painfully clear. The line between us was already there. We just hadn't decided yet what it would cost to cross it. The distance Alexis put between us didn't make things easier. If anything, it made everything sharper. Every glance she avoided, every step she took back instead of forward, reminded me of the truth we were both trying to outrun. I told myself I could handle it, that I'd been living with restraint my whole life. But this felt different. This felt personal. The night it happened was supposed to be simple. A public appearance, heavy security, controlled environment. That's what they promised me. I stepped onto the red carpet in a gown that glittered under the lights, cameras flashing like fireworks. Fans screamed my name. The noise was deafening, but I kept smiling, playing my role. Alexis was there, just as always, one step behind, eyes scanning every movement, every shadow. I felt her before I saw her. That familiar calm at my back. The quiet assurance that nothing would reach me as long as she stood there. Halfway through the crowd, something shifted. It was subtle at first. A ripple of movement. A scream that didn't sound excited. Alexis's hand pressed firmly against my back as she pivoted, placing herself fully in front of me. Stay behind me, she ordered. I barely had time to react. The man came out of nowhere, his face twisted with something wild and desperate. I saw the glint of metal just as Alexis moved. There was no hesitation, no calculation, just instinct. She stepped forward. Pain registered a second later. A sharp cry, blood staining the crisp black of her suit. Time fractured. Alexis staggered, her body still positioned between me and the threat as security finally swarmed in. I screamed her name, dropping to my knees beside her as they dragged the attacker away. Alexis, Alexis, look at me. Her face was pale, jaw clenched, but her eyes found mine immediately. Still focused. Still steady. I'm okay, she said through gritted teeth. You're safe. That's what matters. The ambulance ride was a blur of sirens and shaking hands. I pressed my palms to the wound, my dress ruined, tears spilling freely now. I didn't care who saw me. I didn't care about cameras or headlines or contracts. All I cared about was the woman bleeding in front of me because she'd chosen to protect me without a second thought. At the hospital, they rushed her into surgery. I was left alone in a white hallway that felt too bright, too empty. I paced. I cried. I prayed to gods I wasn't sure I believed in anymore. When the doctor finally came out and told me she was stable, my knees nearly gave out. They let me see her later that night. Alexis lay in the hospital bed, pale but awake, and 4 running into her arm. She looked smaller like this, stripped of her armor, vulnerable in a way I'd never seen before. You should be resting, she said weakly when she saw me. I laughed through tears. You don't get to tell me that right now. I sat beside her, my hands trembling as I reached for hers. This time, she didn't pull away. You took a knife for me, I whispered. Her thumb brushed gently against my fingers. I did my job. No, I said fiercely. You chose me. Silence filled the room, heavy and honest. I can't lose you, I admitted, my voice breaking. I don't care about the rules or the line or what this costs. I can't pretend anymore. Alexis closed her eyes briefly, like she was gathering strength. When she opened them again, they were shining with something raw and unguarded. I was so afraid, she said quietly. Afraid that loving you would make me hesitate. Afraid I'd fail you. But you didn't, I said. You never have. She swallowed hard. Because I love you. The words landed softly and shattered me all at once. I leaned forward, pressing my forehead gently to hers, careful of her injuries. We stayed like that, breathing the same air, no barriers left between us. Later, when I curled carefully beside her on the narrow hospital bed, she let me. Her arm rested protectively around me, even now. Outside, the world was already spinning the story into headlines and speculation. But in that quiet room, none of it mattered. All that mattered was this truth we could no longer deny. The line between us was gone. And whatever came next, we would face it together. The world didn't wait for us to catch our breath. By morning, the headlines were everywhere. Photos of the red carpet frozen at the exact moment everything went wrong. Speculation layered over speculation. Some called it a security failure. Others called it obsession. No one talked about the woman who stepped forward without hesitation, or what it meant to willingly place your body between danger and the person you loved. Alexis was still asleep when I slipped out of the hospital bed, careful not to wake her. Machines hummed softly around us, steady and reassuring. I stood by the window, watching the city wake up, feeling like I was standing on the edge of a life I could no longer return to. For the first time, the fear wasn't about my career. It was about losing her. When Alexis finally opened her eyes, the first thing she did was look for me. Relief crossed her face when she found me still there, like she'd been afraid I might disappear if she slept too long. "You stayed," she said quietly. "Of course I did." She shifted slightly, wincing. "You shouldn't have to deal with this. With the attention. With the fallout." I walked back to her side and took her hand, pressing it gently to my chest so she could feel how fast my heart was still beating. "I've been dealing with fallout my entire life," I said. "This is the first time it feels worth it." She studied me for a long moment, her expression serious. "I'm resigning." The word startled me. "Alexis, I can't protect you and pretend I don't love you," she continued. "And I won't put you at risk by hesitating. You deserve someone who chooses you without conflict." Tears blurred my vision. "Then choose me," I said. "Just not like that." She frowned slightly. "What do you mean?" "I mean, don't disappear from my life to prove a point," I said softly. "Stay. Be with me. We'll figure out the rest together." Alexis exhaled slowly, as if she'd been holding that breath for weeks. "You're asking for a storm." I smiled sadly. "I was born in one." She laughed quietly, then reached for me, pulling me close despite the discomfort. I rested my head against her shoulder, listening to her heartbeat, strong and steady beneath the hospital gown. When she was discharged days later, everything changed at once. My management panicked. Contracts were reviewed. Apologies were drafted. I listened to them talk about optics and image and risk, and for the first time, I didn't feel the familiar urge to comply. I told them I was taking time off. When they protested, I didn't argue. I simply walked away. Alexis moved into my apartment temporarily while she recovered. At first, it was practical, easier, safer. But slowly, inevitably, it became something else. Mornings started with quiet conversations over coffee. Afternoons with her doing physical therapy exercises while I sat nearby, reading or pretending not to watch her every movement. Nights ended with us curled together on the couch, the city lights spilling in through the windows. There were difficult conversations. About privacy. About boundaries. About how public our lives might become once the truth surfaced. We didn't rush through them. We didn't hide from them either. "I don't want to be a secret," Alexis told me one night. "You won't be," I promised. "But I won't force you into the spotlight either." She smiled at that. "You always were stronger than you realized." Weeks later, when the rumors finally reached a fever pitch, I stopped running. I posted a simple photo, no caption, no explanation. Just Alexis and me, sitting side by side, her hand resting over mine. The reaction was immediate. Loud. Divided. But it didn't break me. Because for once, the life I was living felt honest. Alexis found me on the balcony that night, city air cool against our skin. She wrapped her arms around me from behind, resting her chin on my shoulder. "Do you regret it?" she asked quietly. I leaned back into her, fitting perfectly like we always had. "No," I said. "I regret all the years I spent pretending I didn't deserve this." She turned me to face her, her eyes soft but certain. "Then I'll keep choosing you," she said. "Every day." I kissed her then, slowly, deliberately, without fear of being seen. The city didn't disappear. The world didn't quiet. But none of it mattered the way it once had. Because love, I realized, wasn't about safety or rules or roles. It was about the courage to stand still and let someone see you fully. And we had chosen each other. Growing Heart, if you enjoyed this emotional girl's love story, please subscribe for more heartfelt GL stories like this. Globe showing Europe, Africa, and don't forget to comment below. What country are you watching from? Your support helps this channel grow, and I can't wait to share the next story with you.